in the Super Bowl. I'm pretty sure that's the reason why he didn't get a heavy dose of the football these last couple of weeks. Think about it like this. I talk so much about loving 3 down backs. Saquon Barkley comes to mind. Ezekiel Elliott. He's probably the creme de la creme, along with Le'Veon Bell. So for him not to be getting multiple touches, especially in the biggest game of the season, is a signal to me that he's dealing with an injury.
So I thought he was dealing with an injury after the NFC Championship game when he only touched the ball a few times. But the reason I thought they were telling everybody that he was healthy because they forced the Patriots to prepare for him. However, I figured after the Super Bowl was over and there was no other games this season, we'd hear something about some sort of nagging injury. But here is Todd Gurley after the game not talking about being injured.
I mean, I kind of had a break low-key the last 2 months, so it's cool. I mean, you know, we do the physicals and all that stuff tomorrow, but I'm fine, though.
He later said that he felt great. He kind of downplayed the fact that he was injured at all, and they asked about him needing a break after the season. He said, low-key, I've had a break the last couple months. Jalen, is there a chance that he's really not injured and they actually preferred running C.J. Anderson instead of potential MVP candidate Todd Gurley?
Not at all. He clearly acknowledged that he has to get a physical tomorrow. Don't let that part get lost in his commentary. And again, he's a bell cow. Him running the football is what unlocks their offense. Cooks did catch for over 100 yards, but Goff needs that play action. Todd Gurley was not going to be that guy to get 30 touches in the Super Bowl. That doesn't give them their best chance to win. He clearly was not healthy.
So what else, aside from Todd Gurley's health, kept this team to only 3 points? What did Belichick and the Patriots do to limit this high-powered offense to 3 points?
Well, a couple of things. And by the way, you want to give the Patriots all the credit in the world, don't get me wrong. But again, they had chances to score. Jared Goff, Cook was wide open in the end zone. He took too long to throw the ball. And by the time he threw it to him, the defense recovered and knocked it down. Cook also had a chance for a big catch at the goal line in the fourth quarter. He dropped the football. So they had chances to get on the board with a touchdown. They just were not able to execute when it mattered the most.
So I now want to turn our attention to a gentleman by the name of Julian Edelman. I don't think anyone on the Rams was familiar with Julian Edelman because they just did not cover him. You heard Tony Romo always saying, well, they're going to double him on this play, and then he comes open. And then Tony Romo again would be like, they're probably looking for Edelman here, and then he comes open. Edelman had a great game. He was named the MVP of the game. Do you think that Edelman deserved to be the most valuable player of the Super Bowl?
I think he does deserve to be the MVP. Here's why. Through the first 3 quarters, neither team had scored a touchdown. But if you had to dictate what individual defensively or either side of the football you would give the MVP to, it would be hard to find. You could say Gilmore, you could say Hightower, but at the end of the third quarter, you would have probably given it to Cooks if the Rams had got it done, and probably would have given it to Edelman like the Patriots when they did get it done. So for him to catch 10 balls, 8 of them be for first downs, I think that was the difference, and that's why he got MVP.
He did get MVP. Did you find it a little funny that the MVP of the Super Bowl spent the first 4 games of the year suspended because of PED violations?
Oh, he's a TB12 lifer, no doubt about it. And the thing is, we don't care about PEDs in football. We care more about them in baseball because of the record books and the holy grail of people going by the numbers. But football is a physically violent sport. And for some reason, fans and media, we don't look at PED use in the NFL as serious as we should. We pay attention to the concussions and the opioids and all of the things that can harm your body. But at the same time, when a player gets suspended or gets punished for using PEDs, we don't really care. It almost might as well be a badge of honor because he comes right back, he plays well, and he ends up winning Super Bowl MVP.
That's a decent point. Well, the Super Bowl MVP, Julian Edelman, had something to say about his quarterback after the game, and he even brought up the real GOAT, Michael Jordan. Let's listen.
He's a GOAT. I mean, he's got the same number as Jordan now.
He's got the same number as Jordan now. I don't think he's talking about 23, the number on Jordan's back. I think he's talking about 6, the number of rings on Michael Jordan's hand. Did this game solidify Tom Brady as the greatest quarterback of all time, Bill Belichick as the greatest coach of all time, and the Patriots as the best dynasty in the history of football?
I didn't need this game to answer that question. Yes, it just further validates it. How they continue to be a chameleon type of a football team and reinvent itself defensively, in particular late in the season, going against high-powered offenses like the Chargers, the Chiefs, and in the Super Bowl versus the Rams. I want to make sure I acknowledge and give them all of the credit for the way they were able to put together a game plan. Bill Belichick did a terrific job of forcing the Rams to not only get out of running the ball, but they allowed Cooks to get his yards, but they shut off everybody else's water. So you got to give them a lot of credit. That late blitz is what got to Jared Goff, forced him to throw an uncontested interception pretty much. So being able to press the right buttons at the right time was the key. Now, the Rams' defense was stout throughout. You have to give them a lot of credit. The difference was the Patriots stood up for 4 quarters and they didn't.
It's a good point. Now, it certainly did seem like Jared Goff was off his game. His youth seemed to be a little more apparent in this game than it had previously been in the season. And even Sean McVay, he was clearly out-coached, and he even mentioned as much after the game. Let's listen to Coach McVay.
They did a great job. It was a great game plan, and, no other way to say it, but I got out-coached tonight. I was not pleased at all with my feel for the flow of the game and kind of making some adjustments as the game unfolded and to giving ourselves a chance to have some success and put some points on the board. And, credit to them, and they did a good job, and I certainly didn't do good enough for us. But Todd is healthy, and, we just didn't really get a chance to get anybody going today offensively, and that starts with me.
So he said he was out-coached, which he clearly was. Anybody who watched the game knows that. But he also, do you see what else he said? He said Todd is healthy. He said Todd is healthy in the middle of a statement about being out-coached. I want to ask you about both those elements. Are you surprised he admits that he was out-coached? And why did he mention that Todd is healthy in the middle of his answer?
He acknowledged that he got out-coached because we all saw it. And there's no denying it. Now, as it relates to the Todd Gurley part, there's something that we used to do in Detroit when I grew up during the winter called shagging. When a vehicle was stopped at a stop sign or a yield sign or a light, and you run behind the car and you grab the back of the bumper and you ride the car for as far as you can up the block.
Okay. I'm glad that's what
I was trying to run across the street to do a shag one time. And all of a sudden, I was not paying attention, and I basically got hit by a car. And my friends always joke that I rolled up on the hood and said, I'm all right, knowing that my hip was killing me, my thigh was killing me, and my leg was really bothering me. This is what I feel about with Todd Gurley. We all know that he's a 30-touch type of player. For them not to use him high volume the last 2 weeks when he missed the previous 2 weeks of the regular season because of a knee injury clearly lets me know that there was an issue there.
I'm really glad that story was about cars, because when you started, I thought it was going to go in a completely different direction. Jalen Rose, this I find really interesting. Las Vegas does not have the Patriots as the favorites to win the Super Bowl next year. The sports books are now saying that the Kansas City Chiefs are the favorite to win the Super Bowl. After we see Brady and Belichick do this year and year and year after year and year and year, are you surprised that the Chiefs are starting as the favorites to win next year's Super Bowl?
I'm not surprised that the Chiefs are favored because they have a young upstart football team and they have the reigning MVP and Patrick Mahomes, who dazzled this season. But on paper, you got to look at it like this. The Patriots still have Belichick, they still have Brady, they still play in the AFC East. So they're going to get a chance to reinvent themselves as the season continues to happen. But ultimately, you can't pick against them. But also, a team just made 3 straight Super Bowls. I mean, they've made 9. They've won 6. So at some point, it is going to be somebody else's turn.
Well, Jalen Rose, I was not entertained by this game, and I will tell you 5 things that proved that this was the most boring Super Bowl that I've ever seen. That's next on Jalen and Jacoby. Back to Jalen and Jacoby. Jalen Rose, I understand it was a defensive matchup, and there is some beauty in watching defenses dominate, but let's be honest, let's be real. That was a pretty boring Super Bowl, and I have 5 reasons that just perfectly demonstrate exactly how boring this Super Bowl was. Are you ready for my 5 reasons that show you just
Let's
facts?
get it. Yes,
this isn't my opinion. These are facts. These are facts about this Super Bowl. First, at one point in the game, both punters were legit MVP candidates. That is true. There was one point in the game where I was like, Hecker might be the MVP of this game. Second, I went to the Grizzlies-Knicks game before the Super Bowl. The Knicks-Grizzlies game was better than the Super Bowl. This really happened. I was lying down in my bed trying to stay awake for this boring Super Bowl. I had a cup of Red Bull on ice in my hand. I fell asleep while drinking Red Bull during this game. Also, in the middle of the game, none other than LeBron James tweeted this to try to save the night in sports news. Man, where's Shams, Woj, Haynes, McMenamin at? LeBron James was so unentertained during the game that he needed someone to break some NBA news to spicing up his evening. And finally, and I mean this, at the end of the first half, I was actually looking forward to the Maroon 5 performance. I was actually looking forward to seeing Maroon 5. It was so unentertaining to watch the players on the field that I was like, you know what? Maybe Travis Scott's going to turn this up. Maybe this will work for me. Jalen Rose, speaking of that halftime performance, what did you think of Maroon 5?
Well, I have my own reasons and opinion about the halftime situation that have nothing to do with the physical game being played. I had an initial head-scratching moment when I found out that they were the group that was being chose to entertain the audience in Atlanta when they have a wealth of artists that could have filled in and done a terrific, amazing, wonderful job. So in theory, the fact that Maroon 5's performance was not good, it validated my initial thoughts.
So here's one thing that happened to me while I was watching the Maroon 5 performance. Number one, I was not that entertained by it, but I definitely recognized some of their songs. I think I know more Maroon 5 songs than I thought I knew. Like, I knew basically all of those songs. But I do want to ask you this question. What do you think about Big Boy in the Fur Jacket?
Well, that's Daddy Fat Stacks. That's what he's supposed to do. I mean, come on now, you ain't surprised. Flip-flops with socks. I'm surprised he didn't rock that. I was a little disappointed that he didn't come full uniform.
He should have. What do you think about Adam Levine taking his shirt off? Were you surprised?
Well, there are a lot of people that, have comments on his nipples and or whether he should have kept his shirt on and comparing it to the Janet Jackson situation or whatnot. I mean, it is what it is in 2019. Seeing somebody on stage or on television with their shirt off that's a man, it probably shouldn't be shocking to the masses.
Well, someone else who loves to party with their shirt off, and I've seen it firsthand, is a gentleman by the name of Rob Gronkowski. True story. In an elevator to an ESPYs after party, Rob Gronkowski asked the security guard in the elevator if he was allowed to take his shirt off in the party, and when he found out he could, he was very excited about that. Well, will Rob Gronkowski continue to party? Do you think this is going to be Rob Gronkowski's last football game in the NFL?
I think it should be, because as a player, you can tell that the injuries have clearly taken a toll, and he's had multiple. Also, he's not considered the elite at his position anymore. The team, instead of using him for the second half of the season, used him mostly as a blocker, more so than the guy that could go out there and catch you 7 to 10 balls per game, even though he was able to accomplish that in the Super Bowl. He has 3 championships. He alluded to his body breaking down. He talked about it at the Super Bowl, about how the mental toll that it is taking on him. This would be a great time for him to walk away.
Let's listen to hear what Mr. Gronkowski had to say after the game.
Tonight, it's about celebrating with my teammates. And that decision will be made in a week or two, down the future. We're going to have a good time. Bill told me he's partying tonight, so it's going to be good.
Okay. First of all, he said he's going to make the decision a week or two in the future, but I love when he said, Bill told me he's going to be partying tonight. What do you think partying Bill Belichick is like?
Just a couple of adult beverages, a big smile on his face, no hoodie, and just enjoying the fact that he's the GOAT at what he does.
Well, Tom Brady solidified himself as the GOAT at what he does. He also said that he wants to play until he's 45. He's currently 41 or 42. Jalen Rose, do you think Tom Brady wins another Super Bowl in his career?
No, and that's not a diss. You know how much I love Tom Brady, fellow Michigan Wolverine, and I'm rooting for him. And if I was going to, I guess, acknowledge that somebody could go into their 40s and actually continue to keep up this level of excellence, it would be him. But this season seemed like it got all of the mileage out of this vehicle that it could. I'm talking about from top to bottom. They didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver. They didn't have a 1,000-yard rusher. Their defense continued to progress as the season got better. They lost Gordon throughout the run. Brady threw, 3 interceptions and 1 touchdown in the final 2 games of this season. So while it is to be celebrated, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, and rightfully so, they deserve to be in this conversation, I do believe that that was the final one for that duo.
It did have a little bit of Peyton Manning on the Broncos feel to it. It was a defensive matchup. The defense carried the day, and Tom Brady did enough to win the game. Well, Tom Brady isn't the only one excellent into his mid-40s. So are you, Jalen Rose. And when we come back, Jalen Rose has a theory about why LeBron James didn't play on Saturday night. It has nothing to do with load management. He'll give you that theory next.
Introducing the all-new Lexus ES. Every curve, every innovation, every feeling, a product of mastery.
Hearing Luka to go with KP, that's going to be terrific for their basketball team. But when you're trying to build your squad, you can't necessarily worry about what's going on with somebody else's situation. I'll tell you a couple of reasons why it was great for the Knicks. Besides the fact that Kristaps Porzingis is coming off a major injury, has dealt with multiple injuries as such a young player. You didn't necessarily want to give him a big deal until you saw him perform. That's where you see the freedom from Porzingis. How about the flexibility for 2 max spots? Have you guys been paying attention to who's going to be a free agent this offseason? Yes. Guys like Kawhi and KD and Kyrie and Clay and Jimmy Butler and Kemba Walker. You have to be in play if you're a team like the Knicks. Also, Dennis Smith Jr. is good at basketball. He showed promise as a rookie. He's going to continue to improve under Coach Fizdale. Oh, did I mention the Knicks have a lottery pick this year that could end up being Zion Williamson or R.J. Barrett if they get the top 2 picks. And also, they get 2 first-round picks from the Mavs. You get a chance to build out. They can get a starting 5. Okay? This was great for the Knicks. The last time I checked, yes, Porzingis did make the All-Star team. I like his promise. But he didn't show me that he was going to be the kind of transformational player in New York that was going to lift them to a #1 seed like we see the Greek Freak doing with Milwaukee. I saw his situation becoming more like AD in New Orleans, a guy that was going to get a lot of numbers and really be productive, but I didn't know that was going to necessarily lead to future success long-term for the Knicks. So this is a win-win for their franchise, and I think they're going to find ways to be relevant again because of this major move.
Jalen Rose, I know you know things, and oftentimes you say things that end up coming to fruition later on down the road. So I'm going to ask you straight up, is Kevin Durant going to play for the New York Knicks next season?
Possibly. And I'm just going to be 100. So if you have an opportunity, again, to free up 2 max slots, Clippers did it. The Nets have also done it. In New York City, when you hear rumblings that KD may consider coming to New York, when Kyrie Irving is in the Garden, not committing long-term to the Boston Celtics, and he talks about seeing him on July 1st, And everybody talks about how much they love performing on that stage. So you need to be in play if you're the New York Knickerbockers, and they did just that.
They have put themselves in play. Now, one thing is found really interesting about this is Kristaps Porzingis just sort of had some tension with the franchise. We all know that he had missed the exit interview. There was a thing on Instagram between him and Coach Fizz, and now there's reports that he went into and had a meeting last week, midweek, and said he was unhappy with the direction of the franchise. Then he was subsequently dealt, and then he did what people always do. He got a little socially awkward. He had one post that we didn't see that said the truth will come out. And then over the weekend, he had another post on an Instagram story. This, quote, "The city deserves better than that. My suggestion for Knicks fans is to stay woke. Peace." Jalen Rose, why is Kristaps Porzingis telling Knicks fans, who some of which were like you and I celebrating this move over the weekend, what is he warning Knicks fans against? What do they need to stay woke for?
You know I'm a Kristaps fan, and when I heard that he goes to World Star Hip Hop, his stock went through the roof in my eyes. However, since English isn't his primary language, I'm not going to overreact to the term woke based on if you look at the hierarchy in New York City. It just happens to be the first African-American trio, president, general manager, in Steve Mills, Scott Perry, and head coach David Fizdale. I'm not going to take it that far, but people can misconstrue what he said by what I just gave, by that distinction I just gave. He was unhappy with the New York Knicks for the last couple of years. And so if he wanted to be elsewhere, that's his right as a player. It's up to the team to grant him that wish. The team moved him. He landed in a great spot. Luka Doncic and he are going to be terrific. The Mavs get their fill-in for Dirk, a 7-footer that has been knocking down threes for the past couple of decades. Mark Cuban gets his non-American-born player, as he's come out recently and talked about basically how he wished all American-born players would be forced to go play overseas because that would make them better. So I saw them ship out the American-born players and Dennis Smith Jr. and DeAndre Jordan and Matthews, those expiring contracts. So it's all for the greater good of the Mavs and the Knicks. I think both teams did a terrific job.
So, Jalen, I want to turn your attention to another basketball contest I was so excited for. The Los Angeles Lakers traveling to the Bay, where they waxed the Warriors on Christmas. LeBron had played previously that Thursday against the Clippers. I had set up all my plans. I was just going to put the kids to bed and just lock in on this one basketball contest. And then something funny happened. Looking at my Twitter feed, and it was announced that LeBron James would not play in the game because of load management. LeBron James previously played Thursday, played 40 minutes, had all Friday to rest, had all Saturday to rest because this was a later game, started at 5:30 in the West Coast. LeBron has to play in that game, Jalen Rose. Why do you think, and feel free to give out a theory here, a little conspiracy theory, why do you think LeBron James did not play in this basketball contest on national network television?
I don't mind giving you a conspiracy theory because it's only right in this case. And I'm going to put a bow on it at the end. First, I talk about Anthony Davis not wanting to be in New Orleans long-term in September. Woj breaks the news in January to validate it. Then Rich Paul makes a statement about it.
He does.
Then Anthony Davis Sr. comes out and lets the Celtics know that I don't want my son to play for you. And then Anthony Davis comes out and addresses the media. And then all of a sudden, the Lakers do an offer. And we hear it's a lowball offer. And LeBron James, I'm pretty sure, isn't happy to hear that the team was pump faking on its initial offer.
Let's take a look at the Woj tweet. Let's take a look at the Woj tweet that details the offer. It says, in the Lakers' first offer to the Pelicans for Anthony Davis, LA offered Lonzo Ball, Kyle Kuzma, Rajon Rondo, and, wait for it, Michael Beasley and a first-round pick. So you think LeBron James sees this Woj tweet and reacts how?
Here's how I know he sees the Woj tweet, and that's what I meant by wrapping a bow on this.